You got anything for Reese in shameless self-promotion before we move into Twisters?
Well, there's one. I wanted to confirm with you first, but you brought him in first. Like Reese is the first three-peater, right? Like,
Oh, he might be, yeah.
so it's almost like SNL. We got to get like a jacket or something like that that just has like the podcast that he can wear out everywhere
Or
and
like a
just be like,
toque that we have like from our
You
merch
can do
store
a
or something.
T-shirt for your podcast. I will wear it everywhere. I promise you. So
he finds out that our merch is actually like bondage gear or something. We're like, hey man, you're wearing this fucking harness.
there's the assless chaps.
yeah, perfect.
By the way, all chaps are assless by their very definition. Chaps are
That's
assless.
true. You are right. Yeah. But it's more fun to say assless chaps.
It is. It is more fun to say assless chaps.
Gentlemen, hide your spouses. We're talking movies. We're talking Twisters, starring Glenn, not Greg, Powell, Daisy Edgar Jones, and Anthony Ramos. Story by Joseph Kosniski and screenplay by Mark L. Smith. Directed by Lee Isaac Chung. Chris, did you know a tornado rating is not based on size or wind speed? It's based on the damage.
I mean, it's never about size. It's always about the damage. And to that I say, I don't chase anymore.
Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of How'd You Like That Movie? We are going to be talking about the summer release of Twisters, the sequel to the 1996 film Twister. And of course, we cannot be talking about a Twister-related film, tornado-related film, without filmmaker, Mr. Twister himself, Reese Eveneshen. Did I get that right?
No, but that's okay. You got most of it right. That's all that matters, Chris.
We'll have you on the show a bunch of times. We're just going to run through that last name, and eventually it's going to stick.
We'll get it there eventually. Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming out again. We talked about this film coming out and that you would be the guy, the man, to come in and talk about it. But before we do that, as you know, we have to do what we like to call shameless self-promotion. Right. I know you don't like this part of the show, but do you have anything to shamelessly self-promote, Reese?
Guys, I wish I did. This past summer, I've been trapped in my little basement office. All I've been working on is like post-supervising other projects. That has been my whole summer so far. So there's a feature and a documentary I've been the post-supervisor on that I'm producing both of. That has been the extent of my excitement. I don't have a lot to self-promote this today. I'm sorry, folks. I really don't. But
so you can't talk about those projects at all because they're still in post?
I mean, I guess I can. I mean, the one I can talk about for sure is the documentary, which was called She Was Here, which is a documentary about the life of Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol Ann in Poltergeist. So I've been plugging away at that documentary for about a year now. I produced it. We're very proud of it. We're very happy with it. It's a very touching tribute to this young actress whose life was taken a little too soon, and kind of tells the story about what happened and tries to undo the myth of the poltergeist curse, which for years has been cursing the O'Rourke family, unfortunately, with controversies and conspiracies that just aren't true. So this story is there to kind of right the waters and set the record straight. But it's a very long process to get a documentary together. It's not like doing a feature film. So
when do you expect to are you going to do festival, or are you going to do a wide release? What's the plan for this thing?
It'll be a wide release, but it's just so hard to tell when it'll come out yet. I'm not sure. I'm hoping early next year. I was really hoping it'd be ready for October of this year, but it's just because of all the footage we're using and everything, all the legal process it has to go through. It's just taken a lot of time to clear some of the rights and get some of the interviews all cleared up. But it's shaping together to be something quite special. I'm very proud of it. So
do you think you'll premiere at we don't really have hot docs right now, but like, would you probably premiere at a festival like that, or will you just go right to whether streaming or theater or whatever?
It's so tricky to tell right now. I mean, it would have been great to have a premiere at something like Hot Docs, and if something like that comes along that we can do that in, great. If not, I think we'll just do a wide release of it, and hopefully it'll find its audience. It's tricky with documentaries because you'd think some documentaries that you think should be a big hit aren't, and the ones that you wouldn't think anything of are, it's a weird landscape right now for all movies, really, if we're being honest, but especially for documentaries. So
But do you think that the fact that you have a almost like a genre documentary about a very specific but famous topic, like that's gotta inspire, I don't know if the word inspire is right, but give you some confidence that like there is a fan base for this. It's like if you did a Star Wars documentary, like there's a built-in fan base versus a documentary on the opioid crisis or something. You're like, it could be great or it could be people just don't tune in.
well, and it's interesting because I did think that, and we'll get into a little inside baseball. The reality is once we started kind of, we have a version of it that we could start showing people and getting out into the world. The general reaction was not as excited as I thought would be. It's like a lot of people know what Poltergeist is, but you kind of have to re-educate people on it because it's been so long. So there is a dedicated fan base for sure. Like Heather O'Rourke has a massive fan base that I had no clue of until we started doing this documentary, of people that just come out of the woodwork to contact us. But it's a whole other matter to educate the general public on who Heather O'Rourke is. So it's really hard to tell with a documentary like this how well it's going to do or what it's going to do. I mean, I know it'll find its audience, but I'm just hoping it finds a broader audience outside of that. So that's been the tricky balance with the documentaries. Like, you have to introduce who Heather O'Rourke is, and you also have to introduce the importance of what Poltergeist meant to a certain group of people at a certain group of time. So it's been a big learning curve for me to do a doc like this.
And like total time, Ryan, as far as like when from concept or development until roughly when you think it's going to be done, because you said it's different than a feature film. What kind of time frame are we talking about for this documentary?
Well, I mean, like, look at it this way. So the documentary was produced and directed by two gentlemen, Brian and Nick, out of the States, who worked on it for about 3 or 4 years. And then they brought it to us because they had a version of it that wasn't quite, they didn't know what to do with it. And I worked with a great team of producers out of Goderich, Ontario, who had done like a documentary for Netflix about Dark Crystal. They had done Turtle Power. They had done the Power of Grayskull about He-Man. And I brought it to them. And so we worked with them for about a year to reshape and reform the documentary, but it took a year to do that. And now we're in the process with the lawyers and getting all the rights cleared and everything. And that's taking almost 6 months to do. Like this, I had no idea going into this what it would be like, So, because with a documentary, like with a feature film, you have like kind of a blueprint worked out for what the film is going to be, how it's going to work. You've got your script you can follow. With a documentary, though, it's you can really create whatever narrative you want to. And we sort of had to do that. We had to take hours and hours of footage, which already had a rough cut that had a very specific, very different direction. And we completely rebuilt the documentary and rebuilt the narrative and shot all new interviews to kind of build it into a more streamlined story. So, I mean, when all is said and done, if you include the shooting of this document, I mean, it's going to be like 5 or 6 years in the making, So at the time I've been working on it now, it's been a year and I mean, shit, the first time I saw it was May of 2023, and now we're August of 2024, and I'm still dealing with lawyers on it. So it's taking a long time. I thought it would be good to go and ready to start showing at festivals this summer, and that's just how it works.
So we're probably thinking 2025 release then.
I think that would be safe, but I'm very excited, and I really hope it finds its audience. And I know it's a little niche, but it's a really sweet story, and for me now, it's more about like kind of clearing things up for the family because the family has spent years dealing with, our daughter, if you go on the internet and read about Heather O'Rourke conspiracies, there's this weird poltergeist curse or, Hollywood pedophile rings or all these things. And when you get down to the nature of it and you're like, no, it was just a really tragic thing that happened to their daughter. And they've had to suffer for years with all this stuff. And they just want the true story to come out. So
Well, that sounds super interesting, and obviously, when it comes out, we'll have you on to talk about it. What about the feature? What can you tell us about the? I'm assuming it's a narrative feature.
Yes, that was a narrative feature. So that was a film that I wrote over a year ago. We shot it last May. It was called Home Free. It's directed by Avi Federgreen. It's like a big old classic Canadian drama as well.
Oh, it's not the one that you and I talked about over your iced tea.
Yes, it is. That's the one. That is the one. So it
Is
is
it one with the zombies?
Exhibit.
no, not the one with the zombie. Sorry.
Oh, because the zombie one sounds
What's
amazing.
that one? No, the zombie one. That's my super secret one. We can't talk about that one yet.
Oh, okay.
When a problem comes along, you must zip it.
But anyways, that's one we had wrapped up, and we're just like it's getting into festivals this fall, which we're very excited about, which we'll start announcing soon. It's coming out next year, and it's just building the package for it, getting all the press materials ready, getting all the EPKs and everything. So that's been a much more streamlined and smooth process compared to doing a documentary. So
you're doing a fall festival run?
yes, we are. Yeah.
And then what are you going to do? Like a 6-month festival run or 3-month? Like what's your normal? With a film like that? What's your standard festival run?
Well, I got to be honest with you guys. I don't know because I've never really been involved with this is just like a straightforward classic drama,
Okay.
something we'd see on TV. It's just a nice, wholesome Canadian kind of darkish drama.
No monsters.
No monsters in this one yet. Totally different sidestep for me on this one. So I don't know how it works because the festival landscape is completely different because you're not used to there's the genre festivals you can get into, but now with a drama, you're kind of tapping into some slightly different festivals. In terms of release, I don't know yet. I think we'll do the festival thing all through the fall, and there's a couple in the new year that I know about. And I think it'll be sort of like a spring 2025 release, but that's completely out of my hands. I don't know. I'm just kind of going along for the ride on this one. I know all about the process of here's how we do the post super, here's how we do the press for it, here's how we do this. But once you put a drama out into the world, I have no idea what happens. So, I'm just kind of sitting back along for the ride going, hey, we'll see.
Well, when you're giving out screeners, if you want us to review it, obviously send it our way, and we'll put our kid gloves on as we do, and
right.
we'll be nice as we can be, at least.
No. Don't change your format for me.
Fucking thing sucks.
You got to be who you are.
Don't change your form.
Respect your audience, guys. Respect your audience.
I said we'd be nice for us. I didn't say we'd be totally nice. Scott, you got anything for Reese in shameless self-promotion before we move into Twisters?
Well, there's one I wanted to confirm with you first, but you brought him in first. Reese is the first three-peater, right?
Oh, he might be, yeah.
So it's almost like SNL. We got to get a jacket or something like that just has the podcast that he can wear out everywhere,
or a toque that we have from our merch store or something.
T-shirt for your podcast, I will wear it everywhere. I promise you. So
he finds out that our merch is actually bondage gear or something. We're like, hey man, you're wearing this fucking harness.
There's the assless chaps.
Yeah, perfect.
By the way, all chaps are assless by their very definition. Chaps are assless.
You're right. Yeah. But it's more fun to say assless chaps.
It is more fun to say assless chaps. Do you guys want to talk about the movie then, or what?
Let's do it. Let's get into Twisters.
I am going to now hand the reins of the assless chaps over to Scott and Reese, and I'm going to sit back and enjoy these guys talking about this film.
Oh my
God. Well, we already know where Chris's views on this there. I'm not gonna lie. I went in with very, very low expectations with this movie. And it was mainly because of the trailer, because I already knew the target audience it was going for. And Glenn Powell walking in a white shirt in the rain was not my target. But all the girls.
I don't know, Scott. It could be easy on the right day.
It was the cowboy hat. The cowboy hat was nice. But I was but the thing that after this was done that I was impressed by was the fact that this was a sequel that really, with I think the exception of Dorothy 5, didn't really touch upon any of the other team from the original, right? It's just technology and everything moved on. These people moved on, even though there was I guess you could say, like, spoilers, like it seemed like they were teasing Helen Hunt a couple of times, but obviously she doesn't show up. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Like, to me, this was, and don't hate me, Reese, this was a Jaws for the revenge kind of for me, because it felt like the tornado was a character and it was fucking coming after that girl.
Fair enough.
Like wherever she was, that tornado was coming.
Solid reference.
Yeah, so
But
go ahead, Reese. What are your thoughts? What are your top line thoughts on this film?
Oh my goodness. Well, Chris, you know me well enough to know by now, especially after a little iced tea date, that it's very hard for me.
Yeah, by the way, Reese gets crazy on those non-alcoholic iced teas, man. He was just spilling tea all over the place, literally.
And I'm just the biggest party rock. So you know already that it's very hard for me to be critical of literally anything. So it's really tricky to get me on here to review a film and not I don't know how to quite compile my thoughts here, so I'll do my very best.
You can do it!
So I went into it with very high expectations for a movie called Twisters. I don't know why. I had this preconceived notion of what I thought it was going to be. And initially...
Well, they spent, what, 26 years getting to this point, right? Like, I think 96 is when the original film?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So we're at 26 years. And it was interesting because I went into it going, and this is totally the wrong thing to do. So this is both a good and a bad thing, is that I went into it kind of just wanting them to do the format again. I wanted them to essentially do what Top Gun Maverick did for Top Gun, in my opinion, which is just like, it's not quite a remake, but it does all the classic hits, and it does it in a way that's just like, it's really exciting and fun to watch. And Twisters ended up being like, and this is a good thing, is it just did its own thing. But it's very much a Twister movie. But at the same time, as Scott pointed out, they didn't go out of their way to make it like a full-on Twister sequel. Other than seeing Dorothy in the beginning, there was no references to the other characters. Helen Hunt didn't just randomly show up. Nobody else showed up. And it took me a long time in the movie to be like, why aren't they just doing Twister? You know, which is weird, because in any other case, if I was in their shoes, that's exactly the way you should probably approach a movie like this. Is like, and listen, I know I talk about the love of how much I love Twister and all that. I realize also it's not the gold standard for filmmaking. We're not talking a masterpiece here. But as far as a good summer blockbuster goes, it does very well with what it does. So I know we're not talking about a high bar here, but for me, I thought it was interesting that once I thought about it more, I went, okay, I kind of like that they didn't try to do what the other one did, and they just sort of did their own thing.
But okay, actually, I think that's a great place to like talk about some stats. So the original Twister in 1996, it was made for roughly 92 million, and it did a $500 million box office.
That's right.
This film was made for 155 million and did a $246 million box office.
Right.
And I mean, what do you think the marketing budget on this thing was? 75 million, 100 million?
Or, you know, who knows? Probably.
So do you think this, so far it's made 246 against 155, even that. Is this a flop?
No, I don't think it's a flop, because I think it opened bigger than anybody expected it to. I mean, it had an $80 million opening weekend just domestically alone. That's pretty damn good. And I think they were projecting 30 to 40 for it to do 80 million. It would have been really interesting to see what it did if Deadpool and Wolverine did not open the weekend right after it, because it actually held on pretty strong for its second weekend, Twisters. And I think it's kind of being undone by, you know, the juggernaut that is Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't think if it was for that, I think it'd be very realistic that we'd be looking at another $500 million grosser in the Twister franchise. And it may very well do that in the long run. I don't think it will, but yeah, it's interesting. But it was well received. Like, the reviews for it were actually pretty good coming out of it. So, but I think the thing for me that, you know, once I kind of got past it not being Twister and it started doing its other thing, is that, like, first off, I thought the movie's best special effect and best thing in general was Glenn Powell. That guy just, like, bleeds charisma. He's got that movie star thing going on. And it wasn't just the cowboy hat and the white shirt in the rain. Like, I was watching the film with a packed house when I went to go see it, which is, it feels rare these days. And the audience of the tone and energy of the audience was kind of like, I don't know, just sort of tepid. But when he pulled up in that truck in that parking lot with that Oklahoma song blaring, and he got out of his truck, everybody in the audience, you could just feel this collective energy rise. I haven't felt that in a movie theater in years. I can't tell you the last time that's actually happened with a film like this, where you could feel somebody's star presence on screen, like pull people towards the screen. And I thought for the duration of the film that he was in, I was like, this guy's got the thing. Like, he was arguably the best part of the movie. The character is ridiculous, but all the characters were ridiculous. That's kind of the charm. If anything, that reminded me of the original Twister, where it's just sort of like, these characters don't exist in the real world. Like, storm chasers are not this cool. Neither are scientists. They may be now. I don't know, to be fair. But I thought he was my favorite part. I thought the things I wasn't the biggest fan of is that, like, to me, when I rewatched the original just last week in preparation for this call, because I wanted to compare my notes on my thoughts and feelings, is that there was a sense of, even for the 90s, but even watching it now on a big screen, the original, like, they really set up each tornado set piece really well. It's kind of like they give it this sense of awe and terror and suspense, and they make it a big, like, epic moment in the original Twister, where I felt this one, the Twister sequences weren't as interesting. Like, they didn't hit with the same impact. They just kind of happened. I don't know if you guys felt that way, where it's like they didn't quite have the same energy or excitement or sense of terror or suspense that the original did. And I don't know, I thought with today's technology and effects and all these things we have access to, and they had a really interesting director behind it this time who brought probably a little bit more gravitas to it than it should deserve for a movie like this. But I don't know, it just didn't quite have that sense of awe to it. Even in its big finale, I just was sort of going, I'm not quite getting into it, you know? So I guess you could say I have mixed feelings on Twisters. I would like to see it again. I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it as much as I hoped it would. I thought Glenn Powell was great. I thought the effects were great. I just thought there was like something about it that was missing for what I would want out of a summer blockbuster for that. But that's just my 2 cents. So,
Well, we've got your 2 cents. We've got Scott's 1.3 cents. And now you're going to get my buck-09 on this film.
lay it on us, Chris. Let's hear it.
So it's never good. It's rarely good if I show up and I've got 2 quotes that I've pulled for this film.
All right, fair.
So Odie Henderson of the Boston Globe had this to say: watching the sequel is like playing Mad Libs with the original plot. And the reason I like that quote is, if you've ever heard of a little guy named Bo Burnham, he's got one of my favorite parody songs called Pandarin', which is all about stadium country music. And as I watched this film, I was like, I am watching Bo Burnham's parody song, but of like Twister, the original. It was the most cliche, contrived, like red state and like USA. I am surprised they didn't have fucking MAGA hats on for and like carrying around a statue of Trump. Like, there was the like, I was in the military because that's where I went. I was like, okay, so there's your military industrial complex. Then I watched them just like go on and like almost like anti-intellectual, like, we don't need no PhDs to do our storm chasing. The anti-New York stuff, like, oh, the big city girl from New York, but oh my God, surprise, she's not actually from New York. She's from like Oklahoma or whatever. Like, the characters, the way they portray middle America, like the person I was watching with was at first was like, is this like a parody? Is this satire? And I was like, oh no, this is the real deal. And honestly, seriously, like, if anybody has not seen that Bo Burnham video, go watch it, because everything I'm going to say is going to make much more sense. There's a line in Bo Burnham's song where he's like, talks about a Bud Light with a label pointing out. And there was literally a fucking scene where they have a Budweiser, it's not a blue though, and he's just like, bam, that label gets pointed out. That, as far as like, also, like, all, like, I felt like I was waiting for a voiceover that says, storms, when you can't dodge them, ram them. Like, fucking, like, Middle America, Dodge Ram, Budweiser, like, the rodeo with the, like, it opens with the Star Spangled Banner. I think she's got, like, rockets shooting out of her American flag. I was like, if I didn't have to watch that fucking movie for this show, I would have got the fuck out of there. So that's where we're going to start.
Yeah. So, sorry. I'm gonna say like you got way too into this. It's fucking Twisters. But I think like in terms of your criticism of like the teams, right? I think it was just a contrast of the original teams, right? Because you're technically starting with the Carrie Ellis team, but now like evolved because now they technically would be working for a land baron who is just looking to buy up land and trying to figure out like who has insurance or not.
And as insurance guy, Scott's like, I like this. I like this a lot.
Well, I was like, well, they're fucking smart. But and then you got the reporter guy, Ben, and he technically is just taking over for oh my god, what's the girl from the original? Bill Paxton's like girlfriend.
Oh, yes.
Like Jamie Gertz, where
Yeah.
like at the beginning she's apprehensive, throws up a lot, but then by the end he got a fucking tattoo, and he most likely is just wearing like a shirtless vest for the rest of his life in denim, like because he's like, I was inside a tornado. But in terms of mechanics, do those drills in that truck, would that actually keep a car from not fucking shooting into the middle of a tornado?
Sorry, did we suddenly all become mechanical engineers on this show? What the fuck are you even asking that question for? Reese is not a
because I'm watching engineer. I'm like, this is like a lot of
bring
like,
up a valid point though. I mean, I gotta be honest with you. I did the same thing. I'm like, I know I'm not a mechanical engineer either, but this is the problem I had with the first Twister movie. I'm like, you can't just survive by like chaining yourself to a pole that goes 20 feet down in a wooden shed without getting completely ripped to pieces. And in this movie, they're driving full bore into tornadoes. I don't care if they've got drills. And like, I've watched these storm chasing videos. They've still got massive like metal grills on the windshield to protect them in the event that they remotely would go into a tornado, but they're never actively trying to drive into a tornado.
Yeah, but Reese, that's because he used to ride rodeo, baby. Rodeo.
Oh, sorry, that's right. Yes, I forgot. Yeah.
The tornado wrangler.
Yeah, it was like, honestly, and actually, I want your perspective on this, Reese, because I know you do script coverage and stuff like that. I felt like, again, as we said, like the original Twister is not like fucking goddamn some like, it's not Schindler's List or whatever, but the script is solid. Like it's a solid script. And I do wonder if that's because, I mean, there was a little writer on that by the name of Michael Crichton or Crichton. Is it Crichton? Yeah, I think it's Crichton, right? Which if you're watching the YouTube video, you can see that Reese is actually sitting in front of a Jurassic Park poster. That was not scripted.
Completely unscripted.
And unfortunately, this one is written by Mark L. Smith, which a lot of his stuff has been, so The Boys in the Boat, which is also an awful movie, Midnight Sky, also awful movie, and The Reverend, which is very good, were taken from books. The biggest thing he's known for as far as his original screenplay is probably Vacancy, which is genre, which I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard good things about it. It's a good kind of slasher film. I just think that you're dealing with two different script qualities right off the bat. So comparing script to script, Reese, do you think that might have been one of the challenges with this film?
I think so, but I mean, you got to look at when they made Twister in probably 95, 96, they started with the script by Michael Crichton, but the film had 5 uncredited screenwriters on it as well. And they had various writers on set with them, constantly rewriting the script and adjusting it to the new locations, to the cast, because the cast was bringing a lot to it too. And Jan de Bont, who directed the original, allowed a lot of improv and character work within the existing cast. I mean, you look with Philip Seymour Hoffman alone in that cast, or Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt, Jamie Gertz, like they were given the opportunity to bring a lot more than that was on the page for them. So you had a lot of really good talent on that side. I mean, I think Steve Zellian was one of the uncredited writers on the first Twisters. Joss Whedon was on set writing with them, irregardless of what's happened with Joss Whedon in the years since. He's a good character work guy. Yet that kind of talent on there, working with those kind of actors and a director who in his quotes knew exactly what the movie he was making was. He wanted to give it that little bit something extra. They really put the care into the casting and getting the best writers involved, and like they workshop the hell out of that thing, had reshoots. So you put all that together, I don't know what time's going to tell us with Twisters. They probably didn't do it that well, you know? It's the supporting cast, while I did enjoy them, they didn't have the same kind of charm and aspect put into them. Because it's interesting, you see the Storm Chasers and Twister, they're small bit characters, but everybody feels like a fleshed out character.
Yes, they're all three-dimensional.
For 30 seconds, you know? You already go, I know who that person is, I know who that person is. With this new one, I didn't get any of that from anybody. Like, it was just sort of like, oh, they're just there, you know? It didn't have the same thing. And I think a lot of that is just how they made the movie, but I don't know. You're right. From a script quality perspective, yeah, it's two completely different properties. And yeah, I don't think it is as good for sure.
Scott, what did you think?
Oh, I was gonna ask, like, what's the running time on this?
It's like 2 hours or something like that.
Yeah, like that's what I felt too. Like most of the
it
stuff
felt
was
longer. I couldn't wait for the fucking movie.
no, like I think it just like felt rushed that you couldn't really like get to know most of these people. Like you never really got attached to them or what their motivations were. Like the one guy, Dexter, well, his character's name was Dexter, but he was like the older black man, and he was just like, I wanted to do this, and he kind of knew like phrases like, oh, when two tornadoes come up like this, it should be called this, but that's it, right? Like he that's it. Like they have one line, that's it. Like Paul Scheer as the airport traffic guy at the end, like it seemed like he had more character development than anybody on fucking Glenn Powell's team.
But both of these films are roughly the same. Like one's like 116 and one's 119. Like they're all in the same space.
And I was gonna say they roughly have the same amount of time to play with the same sort of thing. And I feel like this one had even less characters, maybe, or no, probably not.
No, I was gonna say I think this one was overloaded because you had to get to know her original team that got like, right, and then you have to get to know Anthony Ramos' team, and David Cornsweet, the next Superman is in there, so he's gonna be a dick if this movie's anything like it. So you get to know all of them, and then Glenn Powell's team is like you don't really know who. Technically, well, you knew Glenn Powell's team was going to be the good guys, but you had everybody's perspectives, and then all of a sudden, it's like Kate is pulled in all these directions. She's not back. She's a tornado whisperer. She can just look at the clouds and know which one's going to be the best one. And just trying to introduce all these characters, it kind of like it leaves you with nothing for anybody, because even like the Kate one, like she was like, I knew more about Helen Hunt and fucking Bill Paxton and like their whole life story than technically the main character of this movie.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's tricky with this one, guys, because I mean Chris, you bring up a lot of interesting points about the other rather intentional or unintentional politics of the film. That's a whole other subject. But it has all the ingredients for what should be like a perfect summer blockbuster, and they just, I don't know, it doesn't quite, it didn't seem to work for us. But as I say that, I'm like, it opened $80 million and relatively good reviews, and people came back the second week to see it, even with Deadpool and Wolverine. So what does that say about the general audience these days? It's that unfortunate quote I bring up from our Oppenheimer and our Oscars talk, where it's like, it's the film business, sadly, but
it did because they doubled down on the way they did. It only did well domestically. Like it did not do well in the Chinese markets or some of the Asian markets or the European markets and stuff. So they pigeonholed it into like America. And right. Again, sorry, Deadpool is about to cross, I think, $800 million in one week on an R-rated film. And I'm not trying to make an apples to apples comparison, but like that is Inside Out 2, $1.5 billion. So $256 million or against its $100 and some odd million budget. Like that's not great. Not for a sequel that's been like really, really people have been looking forward to.
I apologize, but has it opened in these markets yet? Because usually China I was pretty sure
it's opened in China and it did not do well in China.
Reese, you used to live in like Edmonton, right? That was like tornado country and stuff like that, right?
What?
Well,
I guess it's
isn't there
not tornado
tornadoes in
country.
like no? Isn't there like tornadoes in Alberta and shit?
Yeah, you get a fair amount in Alberta. I mean, it's Alberta and Saskatchewan are kind of like if there is a tornado prime area of Canada, it's those two places.
So hypothetically, if there was tornado season during the Calgary Stampede, like right after it touches down, would people still be going to the Stampede that night?
Yes.
Calgary Stampede, yeah, they would go to the Calgary
Yeah,
Stampede.
like tornadoes, like it like let's be honest. It would have to depend on what kind of tornado we're dealing with here. Like
If it was a tornado from Toronto, they would be very angry.
if it was a tornado from Toronto, they'd be very angry. But I mean, like, you would have to demolish an entire, it would just depend on how much damage we're talking here. But I still think there would be thousands upon thousands of people going to the Calgary Stampede.
But this actually brings up an interesting real point about this film is that so these are not, again, this is not a tornado hitting New York City. This is a tornado. These are tornadoes hitting in an area that is familiar with tornadoes and stuff. Everybody acts like they've never fucking seen or dealt with a tornado before. Oh, look, there's a tornado over there. I'm going to just keep doing what I'm doing until it's too late.
Okay, there's no tornado. 9 times out of 10, it's a false alarm.
I'm going to try and get in my truck and drive away. Like, I'm just like,
hey,
and nobody has a basement. I'm pretty sure places in Tornado Alley specifically have shelters for tornadoes.
Well, didn't they cut like that was Bill Paxton's son that you're talking about? But didn't they kind of like allude to that when his girlfriend's like 9 out of 10 times it's not really a tornado? They just say it's a tornado, right?
Sure,
until
but when you look out the window,
until the car came
tornado
through the window, she's like, "Holy shit, it is a tornado!"
Hey, whoa, hey, what? There's a tornado! There's a tornado!
I mean, I think they make stupid decisions in the original Twister too, like there's reality but I would have to assume people make stupid decisions when tornadoes actually happen, like that's just the reality of it. In this case, yes, maybe it was a little too stupid because I was thinking that in 1 or 2 scenes in the movie where I'm like, these are some pretty harebrained decisions we're having here, like driving a truck into a tornado. So I don't care what fancy, phosphorus or whatever she was using powders to dissolve a twister, which is also kind of an interesting idea, but I don't know, guys. It's this is where I go back to like it just feels so weird to like critically slam a movie called Twisters. Like it delivered on the promise of the title. It's a movie about tornadoes and people chasing them. Like it's almost like these movies are kind of idiot and critic proof. Like you go like we can say all we want, but it did what it was supposed to do. It like I watched it with that audience there. I still enjoyed myself. What else would you do with a film like that?
Well,
I don't know if
so actually, again, you kind of like we walked right into where I want to kind of go with this is that, so first off, I was super disappointed that there's no Helen Hunt like at all. Right. And so the original plan that Helen Hunt pitched that she was going to direct with Raphael Cassel and David Diggs, who's from Hamilton, he's fantastic. It would have been an all black and brown storm chasers, members of a rocket science club at a historically black college and university. And I'm like, I want to see that fucking writing team in that movie. Like I would have loved to see that. I think that would have been a very cool way to go with this. You get Helen Hunt in there. And I know the director also didn't want to have Helen Hunt just be like a stay-at-home mom on a farm.
Yep.
And okay, so don't have it be her daughter. Have Helen Hunt as one of her professors. Like they're like that's an easy fucking solve. Like you could have still put Helen Hunt in it. I think her idea around the script would have been super cool, but I guess they were like, fuck that. Let's we don't want to make a woke movie, so we're gonna make it the super white Oklahoma movie, and that's what we're gonna do. Like this, I don't know if bringing on the director of Minari, which Minari is a great film, like that's a fucking great film, but it's like an indie darling, and then being like, do this like a crazy adventure sci-fi or not sci-fi VFX movie. Like I know their DOP Lee Isaac Chung, he did like he's basically Abrams guy, right? And he also did Savages and Spy Games and stuff like that. Like, oh sorry, no, oh shit, sorry, I got my notes wrong. I don't have the DOP. I somehow doubled my director and DOP in here. Anyway, the DOP is the one who did Star Trek and Rise of Skywalker, Force Awakens and stuff. So that his work was fine. I don't know if you have the right director doing this. You don't have the right script. And they shot on 35 fucking millimeter film? Huh? Why? Like, why? Why would you shoot this on film?
Like, oh, sorry, Reese. I was just gonna say, like, for me, like, there's something to be said about a movie that adds an S to the end of the title. Because when you go from Alien to Aliens, you're expecting, like, it goes balls to the wall. So when I went from Twister to Twisters, like, I was just expecting like fucking like tornado city everywhere, people inside that movie theater saying like it's all around us, like it's on top of us, just like fucking tornado like devastation.
It's inside
right?
the room, man.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it's just like little like winds just start like come in, the boom, it comes right down.
Oh,
like,
that's so good. That's
You're
so good.
Just take
But-
James Cameron's Alien script
and just make it into tornadoes.
in Oklahoma, and just put tornadoes instead, and they have to defeat like the Queen tornado at the end. You know?
Oh my
Yeah,
God, Reese, this is it. This
That's
is great.
Twister's great. Yeah. So,
The Queen tornado can have like sharks and octopuses in it.
Oh, it's
just
because
like
it's like what's it? Sharknado.
yeah.
Perfect. It's just crazy. But yeah, and that's kind of what I thought it was going to be. Just 100% like this was going to be like full blown popcorn, and it was just gonna like just melt your fucking face with effects and like cows flying everywhere and horses and.
Another cow.
Actually, I think that was the same one.
And like, and that's the thing, like going into a Twister movie, like you're expecting some fucking cows to be flying.
Right.
And
I think all we saw was chickens, right?
No, it was a blink and you miss it for a cow. But it was like when they were driving up, I think to the second one, and it's touched down, like a cow, like slow, like it was very small, just kind of like flew and then flew off the screen.
There was a cow. That's right.
Yeah. But also like when they're driving in the field, like no naked man kept popping up in the field either. Like in the original, like you're just like, what is this? Right? Like where are the nods to it? It was just like beat moments that were the same. Because him chasing down her and finding out exactly where she lives, and then they have that dinner before the final storm chase kind of thing. It was just like, this is what it just seemed like the writer was just like, this is what Twisters was. It was like, here's the beats that they need, instead of just kind of making his own shit.
Well, and that was the tricky thing that I was having a problem with. Like I said at the beginning, is like I kind of, it's a catch-22 here where it's like, yeah, I also wanted the same things you wanted, Scott, but at the same time I kind of respect that they didn't deliver on that either. Like I don't know, like it's like, oh, okay, well, at least you tried to do your own thing. But then I go, then why call it Twisters? But then if you didn't call it Twisters, you go, but it's so close to the original Twister. Like you
could have called it Tornado Alley.
Yeah,
Windstorm.
You know what else the film didn't have? It didn't have the killer soundtrack that the first movie did.
Oh my God! Again, wait, are you like reading my notes? Because like you're walking me right where I want to go with my next comment. Because the fucking endless new country tracks. It was like, bam, there's the music video. Bam, there's the music. I was like, fuck me. Just can we get a John Williams score in here at some point? I cannot listen to any more.
The song choices in the original Twister, when they had them, they were great needle drops. Like when they leave Meg's place in Wakita and the score starts up and it flawlessly transitions into Humans Being by Van Halen. Like you feel that energy.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
Let's do this. Let's go chase this tornado. I didn't have any of that in this movie, and that's what I wanted, was moments like that, We're just like, I am so fucking pumped right now with these guys.
Well, it's like Highway to the Danger Zone or any of that type of stuff. Like it's put in the right spot. It's the right song for that moment. This just felt like new country song, new country song. Like it was almost like, again, like I bet you if I was to go and look at all those songs, any artist that has a music video, all they did is just take their chunk of Twisters and like that was their music video. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was gonna say the first storm chase had it was orchestra soundtrack that seemed like it was back from the 90s. Like it wasn't music. There was no vocals.
No, you're right. And the score, but even the score, like, and it wasn't bad, but it just, like I was saying, with the sense
It
of
didn't build, right?
it just didn't have like, it didn't pull you in like that, you know. It just, I don't know. I just didn't feel the excitement there. But I got to be honest with you, that's how I felt about a lot of new movies these days. And I'm like, is this what it feels like to get older as a film fan? Like, you see what young people are enjoying, and then you go watch it and go, what am I missing? Like, what am I not seeing these days?
Did you watch Deadpool and Wolverine, Reese?
I did, yes.
So did you watch it before or after Twisters?
I saw it after Twisters.
So when NSYNC popped up, were you like, this is what I wanted for Twisters? Like, why couldn't they do something?
I don't know if I felt that, because like that, a needle drop like that, I guess technically works for a movie like Deadpool and Wolverine. I didn't want NSYNC to pop up in Twisters, but you know.
That would have been like. Just,
go ahead, Scott. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, just imagine that opening when all her friends are getting sucked in, and it's like, bye, bye, bye.
We would be talking about it, wouldn't it? We'd be like, what a brave, bold choice they made. So, stupid, yes. Genius, maybe.
But I think it does prove the point of like, yes, that works in that opening sequence with Deadpool. It's perfect. It is so well done. It is the right song choice for that right moment, versus just like, and so we just thought it will be released later today, is our episode on Deadpool and Wolverine. Cool. Sorry, not later today. It will already be out by the time you hear this. There's a tracking shot with Madonna's Like a Prayer, which I was like, this is a fucking Michelangelo masterpiece. It's like a kill scene with Like a Prayer as they just dolly. Well, listen, the critics have given this a 76. The audience are giving it a 92. As we discussed, it's done $246 million against its $155 million budget. I think it's a flop. You guys don't seem to think so. So as we wrap this up, what are your final things on this? Do you recommend it? What are you saying about this film before we let you go, Reese?
Oh boy. I mean, do I recommend it? Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, it was still, I still enjoyed myself, and I have lots of friends who have seen it and thought it was great, and they had a wonderful time watching it. So I'm like, it scratched that itch for them. There's that. I mean, it's like anything. Twister has a special place in my heart. It came at the right time in my life as a kid when I saw it. I loved it back then. I saw it a ton of times in the theater back then. I love it now. I watch it at least once a year. So it was hard, and it's a shame, because usually I'm the guy who's like, let go of the past, embrace the future. And for some reason in this case with this one, I'm like, I guess I can't. I guess I'm gonna be that old grumpy bastard with this one. Like it didn't
at the clouds
for me, but I didn't have a bad time either. So sure, I guess I'd recommend it.
Scott?
Yeah, like for what it was fine. I took my middle child, and she enjoyed it. I'm pretty sure it was due to Glenn Powell in that cowboy hat with the white shirt. And I'm like, you're 13. I don't think you should be having these feelings right now. But
it comes with a Glenn Powell popcorn bucket.
Oh my God. How is that not made?
It's just like denim.
How is that not made?
Oh, Scott, you guys are like, I would buy that in a heartbeat. I would give this movie 10 out of 10 if I could have left the theater with that. Like I said, my favorite part of the movie was Glenn Powell.
It's Glenn Powell's mouth with the cowboy hat, and then, well, you know what you do with popcorn buckets.
I was gonna say, how many people are gonna like try to find that fucking t-shirt they made for that? Like, all like, I'm sure every like extra and prop guy, like everybody on set, got that Storm Chaser shirt. So they should be on eBay, but now. But yeah, for what it was fine. But I do have 2 questions for Reese.
Okay,
Chris, you can answer too, but your opinion doesn't really matter. Okay, number 1, ready, Reese?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned before, store like the wooden shed with the pipe, tying yourself to that.
Yes.
So which one was more believable for you? That scene, or just going into the open outdoor pool and crawling on the floor?
Neither. I mean, because I will hesitantly lean towards the pool and the open floor, if only because the full tornado did not engulf the entire area. The tornado fully engulfs Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton at the end of the movie. As majestic and awe-inspiring as it is, those two should be ripped to, like, the final 5 minutes of that movie should be those two getting ripped to pieces, their guts, brains, everything getting sucked up there.
Nobody got sucked up in here.
I got sucked off here.
The pool, I'm saying I'd lean more towards that. It doesn't mean I like it, and it doesn't mean I think it's realistic either. It was a bizarre choice to run towards the pool, and the fact that they were all like, oh yeah, what a great idea. It's like, if they would have just played it as more like, we have no other option other than this pool, I guess, you know. So there you go. That's my answer.
And if you had to pick one 90s movie to sequelize 20 something years later, what's your next one? Like, they did this with Twister, they did it with Top Gun. What's the next one that you can technically use this formula on?
Oh boy, guys, that's a really tough one. I mean, for years, I think I wanted to see a True Lies sequel. That would have been something. But maybe it's for the best that they didn't, especially with the current political climate. And I think that's why they didn't do it. I think they went, yeah, this is probably not the smartest idea. And it's not.
I mean, it's essentially Mr. and Mrs. Smith at that point then. Like, once they're both assassins,
yeah,
spies, you're basically into a Mr. and Mrs. Smith kind of territory, right?
But it didn't have the charm of Arnold and Jamie Lee and James Cameron. So if it was the recipe of those three, I'd like to see that. Another 90s, oh, guys, that's a tough one. Scott, Chris, do you have an answer for that? I really have to think on that one. So.
I mean, just because this caught me off guard too, just go fucking boom, Days of Thunder, boom, but with a black driver. Bam, woke.
All right, fair enough. Days of Thunder, right on.
Scott?
Sorry, I'm trying to think of the name, but I thought of one. But what's the Reality Bites? I want to see Gen X now have to deal with millennials. Like, how they were the, you know, all against like the establishment,
right,
like just
right.
Oh, the new generation is very much against the establishment now.
But that's what I'm saying, right? Like, the views of night, like, you got Ben Stiller, you got Ethan Hawke, Winona Ryder.
To see how those guys would have aged now into the 2020s. Would they have held on to their original ways, or would they have changed with the? Yeah, that's a good pick. That's a solid choice.
I feel like we're doing like a writer's summit right now.
Yeah, I like it. Let's start writing, guys. We got this.
And I'm sure, so obviously, my take on this film is just do not watch this film. If you tell me this is like one of your favorite films, I'm going to be judging you hardcore. It is what I'm doing. If you're watching the YouTube video of this, you'll notice that I'm wearing my Do Not Expect Too Much from the End of the World t-shirt by Radu Jude, some Romanian new wave. Go watch that. First, go watch our episode on that. Then go watch that film. If you are looking for a summer blockbuster, go watch Deadpool and Wolverine. Do not watch this movie. This movie is garbage. It is absolutely fucking atrocious. Anyway, Reese, always good to have you, man.
Guys, I'm so grateful and honored to be here. It's a pleasure. I really appreciate you guys bringing me on for a third time. Let's do it a fourth time, and let's like really complete this. We'll make it super exciting. So
we gotta get you some of our merch so that you can wear it in can.
Yeah, perfect. I'm down for it, guys.
Anything else for Reese before we let him go, Scott?
No, I look forward to the best of 2024 when it's Twisters all the way around, and Chris is gonna
the
have
Academy
to do
Award goes to
Best Actor, Glenn Powell.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, he's gonna win right now. That's Glenn Powell gets my votes.
Hottest man at the Oscars, Glenn Powell with the cowboy hat.
Oh, he's gonna be busy, man. Like, his next 5, I think he has 5 films for next year that are coming out. And a remake of Running Man is one of them.
Yeah.
So fuck, he's gonna be busy, man. He's definitely taking advantage of this 15 minutes of fame.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah, he's smart. I like him.
All right, Reese, have a great day. And again, thanks for coming out.
Thanks, guys.
It's always great having Reese on the show. I mean, I don't want to say he's like my favorite guest, but I mean, we've had him on a lot of times, so clearly we like him around here. What do you think, Scott? Not a bad show though, right?
Yeah, no, it's 100% what I thought it was going to be. So she, with you the whole time, I'm like,
did you know I was not going to like this film? Like, at what point that you were watching that movie where you're like, fuck, I'm going to have to listen to this guy cry for like an hour?
Oh, halfway, I would say like 10 minutes in. Like, once
you're like, I saw the title and I'm like, Chris fucking angry.
Oh yeah, because 100% they wasted a fucking good title card. because that title card should have came out after the damage was shown, not before the damage. But also when it just like halfway through the movie, when all of a sudden like she goes back to her home and she opens up the cottage and then it just jars into the handheld camera.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, Chris is gonna like fuck. And I'm surprised you didn't fucking mention it.
There was just so much I disliked about this film. I like, again, and I actually had, so the DOP, the cinematographer, is Dan Mindel. Dan Mindel. Not, I don't know why I had the director's name twice in 2 spots, but I was so passionately hating on this film while I watched it. I was like losing stuff. So are you cool with me finishing with a quote then for today, or what?
I don't think I have a choice.
You don't. You are correct. So Richard Whitaker from the Austin Chronicle. Heavy-handed and stuffed with cardboard characters, everything about Twisters, save for Powell, feels like a pale imitation of what made the original such an unexpected smash of a disaster movie.
And that is our wrap for the day. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. If you want to get a hold of us, reach us at the www.howdyoulikethatmovie.com. I'm surprised you went bashing more in terms of, you know, how you have like Katie O'Brien coming off of Love Lies Bleeding, and then she's like a bit part here. Yeah, what's the girl from Mad Men?
Yeah. I never can remember her. She played like Sally Draper or whatever. Yeah, she gets like sucked. So actually, I should have said this in the main show. The only thing I did like was the fact that they like wasted a bunch of characters, like murdered them by the storm right away. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, I can get on board with this. Production by Rod Shaver, Vader Monkey Productions.